Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for joining us today. Another very interesting session and two let me call them star performers from ACCA. We are here with a very interesting topic today, and the topic is for today's discussion is maintaining communication and easing access to finance in a time of crisis. Um, I think with experience, it has emerged that two sectors are going to become the backbone of the economy, of the activities going on, and whatever we are facing right now. Two sectors have emerged as very, very important. So one is financial services, and other for sure is the telecom sector and the digital sector. So today we have two experts and two very high-profile members representing each of these sectors. I'll begin by introduction, and then, for the sake of interest, we will ask them to share uh, their career journey with us as well. So I'll begin with Kabeer Naqvi. Kabeer Naqvi is a fellow ACCA member. Um, he has risen to the very top of microfinance banking industry in Pakistan at a very remarkable pace. Kabeer has nearly 18 years of work experience to his name, and he's been with the U Bank since 2000 and September 2015. We have Sardar Muhammad Abubakr with us as well. Sardar Abubakr has about 17 years of diverse experience gained in over 7 countries in Europe and Asia, blended with both group and business unit exposure in listed and private entities in roles ranging from digital product services with P&L responsibility, finance, corporate strategy, mergers and acquisitions, digital transformation, customer billing, financial reporting, internal audit, so on and so forth. So to begin with, Kabeer, if I can come to you first, um, a lot of ACCA members will be listening and watching you today, and I'm sure you are a role model for a lot of them. Um, can you share some highlights of your journey, and also along the time? I mean, along this journey, if you've come across challenges, stumble blocks, or if you've felt really rewarded, if you can mention those feelings with us as well.
Yes, thank you very much, Harun, for having me here today. And I hope you're keeping safe and your family as well. Abubakr, glad to see you. I hope you're safe as well. And thank you very much for a very elaborate introduction also. So, my journey is quite unconventional. It's not a benchmark, I would say, myself. I've had many things came my way, maybe out of sheer luck, or maybe I was the right man, the right place at the right time. So luck plays a very important role, I say, and there have been many coincidences, although they say there are no coincidences in life. So I am a mono ACCA member. I did not go for any other qualification. And in fact, after my O levels, I did not even go for A levels or an undergrad degree. So I just directly jumped into CAT and then I did ACCA. So I haven't been to college per se.
Okay.
And I
Okay.
would not advise my children to do the same. Just saying. So with that, I started working at the age of 17. I joined an audit firm, did that for about a couple of years, moved to I worked for a hospital, worked for a share registrar company, then worked for a microfinance bank after coming back from Saudi Arabia, where I was working for Ernst & Young as a tax consultant. So I did a bit of internal audit, some tax consultancy in another country. And then I've been with the microfinance industry for over 15 years now. So I started off with the Tamir Microfinance Bank, which is now Telenor Microfinance Bank. I was a manager finance when I joined there. I was there for about 9.5 years, rose up to be the CFO, Chief of Staff and Company Secretary. When I got a chance in 2015 to come to a smaller player in the same industry as the CEO, I left Karachi, where I worked all my work life almost, and I came to Islamabad. And the rest is history. UBank has been a wonderful experience personally and professionally. So here I am. It's a bank which is on the map now. We were the smallest microfinance bank 5 years back. Now, in terms of branches, we are the largest, Alhamdulillah. So it's been very fulfilling. And in 2015, I had to cross over from my accounting job to a front end job. So that was I would say the turning point, because I was CFO in my previous life, and many people were very skeptical, especially at the regulators end, that if an accountant can actually run a financial institution or not. but Allah has been very kind. So it's been good so far.
No, for sure. I think you've made your mark, definitely. And for those who are connected with Kabir on Facebook, you would notice that Kabir has been so phenomenally active within his organization, going around inaugurating new branches, staying on the go, and we really used to enjoy those posts every day coming from Kabir. Now I'm going to this particular place, ribbon cutting and all. So fantastic, and I'm sure you're that this has played a very important role in the expansion that you've just mentioned in your organization. Going over to Abubakr, and another very accomplished individual, I would say. Abubakr, a bit about your journey also. So how did it go?
Assalamu alaikum, Harun and Kabeer. Thanks for having me. I hope you guys are doing well as well and safe. I seem to see that Harun, I think you and I are taking this from home, but our good friend Kabeer seems to be working very hard. I think he's in the office right now. But yeah, no, I think as Kabeer pointed out, there is luck that comes into play. But however, at the same time, as a professional, as a human, you should only try and do your very best. You can't put things down to luck. You can't rely on luck to help you out. When I did my A levels after that, I did a stint with an advertising agency. So I used to make some English ads. I was a copywriter for a brief while. Then I got into accountancy. Fast forward, I was 4 or 5 years with an accountancy firm. जो काम मिला वो सब किया, as people who have been in accountancy firms can probably recognize. After that, I joined Telenor in internal controls unit. Uh, Went to Telenor Group, got a great opportunity there for about 2 years. So I traveled to various Telenor BUs representing Telenor Group. I came back, did internal audit for a while. Then I also got an opportunity in Maldives with cable and wireless communication. So I took that on and then relocated back outside Pakistan for a couple of years. But I've been back for about 7 years now. And during these 7 years, I've done a mix of strategy. I was also the CFO, and my current role is head of digital services and also strategy at Telenor. And I think if there's one thing in the journey that I want to mention is that when it comes to opportunities, right, when it comes to paving your career path, nakhra nahi karna. Take whatever you can get and learn. I find too many people, Harun, who make plans which are way too long term. Okay, I will not take on an opportunity because it doesn't fit into my career horizon. I think students need to realize now that career horizons are not like this. They're branch out. And I think you have to do those moves, you have to take those risks and take those opportunities to learn, and then doors will open.
True, true, true. And with these two gentlemen, if you notice, they've both got very, very experienced, I mean, diverse skill set. Talking about Kabeer, it's internal audit, it's external audit, it's taxation. Talking about Abu Bakr, you said it started with advertising and copywriting, and then went on to the telecom sector, the core. But still, again, strategy. It ended up as a chief strategy officer, as we currently speak. So let's get on with the conversation. I think a lot of lessons for all those individuals who are listening to this conversation live or will listen to this conversation afterwards as well. A lot of messages for you, and some very good advice given by both Kabeer and Abu Bakr to the gentlemen who are going to pick up messages from this. So quote unquote, future is upon us. What do you think? Were we prepared as organizations? Were we prepared to take on these challenges that COVID-19 has offered? And if you can begin with Abu Bakr yourself. So, what do you think? Uh, was your organization or generally the telecom sector, was it prepared when COVID hit us?
Arun, what I always say is that organizations in their risk mapping, they probably didn't account for COVID, right? So they didn't view COVID or a pandemic as a risk in their risk registers. However, I think the journeys that organizations have taken on digitization, the journeys that organizations have focused on in ensuring that customer journeys can be more seamless, backend infrastructure can be more seamless, and that there could be a digital proposition when it comes to customer facing and also back-end processes. I think that's coming in handy. So the telecom sector has had to digitize, right? So necessity is the mother of invention. We find that there has been considerable value in us being able to reach our customers directly, and not just through channel partners, and to do so with an experience that they can relate to and use. So again, if I were to talk about it, our digital transformation journey in Telenor Pakistan, and now we call it modernization across the Telenor group, has been quite notable and has been something that we've been on a journey on over the last 3 years. And that is meant कि हम अपने कॉल सेंटर ऑपरेशंस को कैसे डिजिटाइज कर सकते हैं, हम अपने बैक एंड इंफ्रास्ट्रक्चर को कैसे ऑटोमेट कर सकते हैं, हम अपनी कस्टमर जर्नीज को कैसे डिजिटाइज कर सकते हैं, कैन कस्टमर्स रिजॉल्व देयर प्रॉब्लम्स and connect and subscribe to our services through easy to use means. And I think that is not just a smartphone proposition, Harun, because एक view आता है कि यार when you talk about digitization, you're talking about smartphone customers, and that means you're leaving 100 million people behind in Pakistan. That's not the case. Digital can be as simple as something as an IVR service that allows customers to connect and connect with organizations. So it's a mix. So I will say that yes, organizations weren't preparing for a pandemic, but the telco sector that is focused on digitization and modernization is probably better placed to come out of this better than the rest.
And Kabeer, yourself, what is your perspective as in you as an organization, as a microfinance organization, and the need for finance is going to be stronger than ever. Do you think your organization or the entire sector, the microfinance sector, were they prepared, to take on this challenge? I think, Kabeer, we can't hear you. So,
hello, can you hear me now?
Yes, now we can hear you.
So I tend to agree with Abubakr that the telecom sector was obviously better prepared for such a thing, an eventuality if it occurred. For us, it's a bit of a contrast. Absolutely did not prepare for this. Absolutely were not ready for this. And talking about banks, particularly microfinance bank that primarily deal with the rural segment, where the human intervention is key. So we give hundreds and thousands of micro loans to individuals in the rural Pakistan. So, even if we are digitizing our processes that we are in terms of mobile application, that will all, or internet banking, that will all work for our urban clients, but not for our rural clients, which is our core base. So obviously, when this thing came in and the pandemic is as such, social distancing and closure of areas, branches, lockdown, and all of that. So that has had a material impact on our way of life as a microfinance bank and for the whole industry as well. So now I'll answer more when we go deeper into the conversation as to how we're countering that.
Okay. Now, starting to talk about some challenges, and my first question to both of you would be some major manpower challenges. And if you go through a survey, findings of a survey that ACCA has shared post COVID-19, there was one common factor which about 60% of the respondents who took part in this survey they alluded to, and they were talking about decrease in employee or workforce efficiency. So about 60% of 10,000 respondents mentioned that there has been a considerable decrease in the efficiency of the workforce ever since the lockdown, ever since they've been asked to work from home. Both of you gentlemen, and we can start with Kabeer this time. Alongside other challenges, Kabeer, that you mentioned, your reach or access to your clientele, your customers, that was restricted. But what about within the organization? Were there some challenges visible there as well?
Yeah, so I think there are two things that matter here. One thing is that we were part of the essential services. Banks could not be shut down because it would have had a very material impact on the economy. So when I say we could not shut down, I could have theoretically had all the branches open and the management team and the senior staff could have worked from home conveniently, but we chose not to do it. And that was a time, when to motivate people to make sure that the system keeps on going, because I was certain that if I sit at home and my leadership team sits at home, that will definitely have an adverse impact on the morale of the people who are working out in the field. So we chose to come in, obviously with social distancing and no visitor policy and multiple meeting on Teams or Zoom. So we never stopped coming to work. Now, the impact that has had, and I'll share it with you, and I'm rather pleased to share it with you. In my view, particularly in our industry, many people went into lockdown or started working from home a bit prematurely, if you ask me. Starting early March. And if when I look back in hindsight over the last 2 months, to share with you in terms of fixing our back end or looking at our digital channels or manual work that we were doing, Team Ubank has been extremely productive. While the world was slowing down, we increased our pace because we had room to as well. So this worked to our advantage. Having said that, I'm not propagating that we should not do social distancing. I'm not propagating that we should not take care. And obviously, lives are most important. So certain SOPs were put in place at the branches as well as at the head office, and those have worked very well for us. And there hasn't been any case, alhamdulillah, of coronavirus at the bank. But the sales continued, the collections continued, and most of all, our driving force has been the segment of the society that we serve. These people are starved for cash right now. You see, the government is taking a lot of action also. So us as a microfinance bank, we also have a moral obligation to make sure that the things keep on rolling. So it has been good so far. All what that we worked for last 2 months, that has worked very well for us so far. Yeah.
That's very brave and motivating, I must say, that you felt for your team and you thought about their motivation level, and you'd also put yourself in the in the forefront, in the face of this pandemic. I am up for a contrast in this case as well, Abu Bakr. If I go to you, what was your side of the story?
So
How did
we,
you?
Harun, we actually initiated our BCB and we went on work from home for almost all of Telenor Pakistan early March. There were some exceptions, of course. We had some front end teams and certain technology field operations teams that still have to provide physical services. Connectivity in this day and time is a lifeline for many companies and individuals, right? You cannot meet your loved ones, but you can still speak with them. So we have our brave field engineers going out and still making sure that our sites and network is up and running. Barring those exceptions, we went from a complete work from home model. We recognize that first and foremost, this was a health situation and a health pandemic. As we did that, we ensured that the VPNs for employees were in place. We had tools such as Microsoft Teams, Viju, all set up for our entire employee base. All employees in Telenor Pakistan already have their own laptops that they use for their work. And there was a recent survey that was conducted, a pulse survey, to check the engagement and morale of the organization. And it was done Telenor group wide. And surprisingly, Harun, we actually saw an improvement, an increase in engagement and effectiveness of the broader organization. And I think when we've dug a little deeper, what we found is only one thing, that जो हमारा vision है ना Harun, on empowering society, our employee base is able to connect to that more strongly these days because they see how our services are impacting the lives of people, how they're becoming so important in these times. And that is kind of rallying people to make sure that the spirits are high and that they keep delivering. At the same time, there are, of course, hotspots and challenges. We do also find in that survey that people do feel a sense of social isolation. And that's where we're trying to now set up, activities digitally on exercise, push-ups. I've been doing a few myself and trying to engage cross-functionally. This is not a substitute for our physical way of life, but overall, I think the teams have been robust. They've been connecting with the vision well. I think it's something that we're quite proud of.
Excellent. Thank you very much. I think two very contrasting stories, but I think both very motivating and both very, I think, good messages for everyone there. This was the past, the recent past. We saw organizations prepared and some organizations not so prepared, but we saw agility in the way they quickly react to the situation. And I think both organizations done phenomenally well. Um, let's look into the future now, and let's try to envisage some challenges that there might be for the digital sector as well as for the microfinance sector. So, if I can come to you, Kabir, first, and what is your what do you see on your horizon, or what kind of challenges will you now face that you anticipating facing within your sector?
Right. So I'm going to develop a bit of a perspective if you can give me a minute. So we are in financial services, and whatever is happening because of the pandemic and in turn the lockdown is that the economy is being squeezed in size. There is less cash. We are going towards, if we are not already, towards the cash liquidity crunch, which is affecting all businesses. People are getting, unfortunately, getting laid off. Businesses are the revenues are taking a dip. So it's a tough time world over, and obviously it's the same in Pakistan. Where it gets even more difficult is in the agri sector. We were already facing climate change issues over the last 1 year, especially 2019 was a very tough year for our sector, the agriculture sector where we lend. Then there was a locust attack, and now again, as we speak, if you're following the news, there is a massive locust attack going on in various areas of Pakistan, destroying crops all over. So anything that could potentially go wrong, unfortunately, seems to be going wrong as far as our sector is concerned. So in that, our work, the way I look at it, and the discussions we have internally, is that our work has never been more important. Now, this is the time for us to rise to the occasion. How are we going to do that? So what we're doing right now is that first of all, we are trying our best that our people should not panic, and they should not let the customer panic. And how we're doing it is that we are making sure that we continue to lend. If you talk to a conventional commercial banker, they'll be like, this sector is high risk at the moment because there is a liquidity crunch. But there is a lot more to the sector that what you can see sitting in your risk offices only. So I have two options. We have two options, I would say. Either we stop lending, we just consolidate our risk, and we, sort of shrink in size. And from a risk perspective, that may be a strategy, may work for commercial banks. The other option is to continue to lend and hold our customers' hands and make sure that they do not get into a liquidity crunch. In fact, we give productive loans. Right now, we're even considering giving consumption loans to keep them going, keep their stoves going. And we are fully supported by our shareholders to do that. And we want to have the skin in the game. We want to continue lending to these guys in this tough time. Now, the good part is the regulator understands it. And it's worth mentioning here that the central bank has come up with various very, very effective relief options for commercial banks as well as microfinance banks in terms of restructuring loans, rescheduling loans, and they're allowing us certain things that we under BAU are not allowed to do, that have opened up our hands. So for us, these are challenging times. We don't see this going away. I may be wrong. I hope I'm wrong for at least a year. And for people to recover from this economically may even take longer. So for now, our strategy is to go all guns blazing and continue to lend and hold our customers' hands and keep liquidity. So we are exploring different options to raise funding, build resilience in our balance sheet. We've just raised more capital. We're going to go for more capital if needed, but we're going to stay put and we're going to fight this. That's the plan.
Okay. And Kabir, for the sake of continuity of this conversation, this point that you brought up, even though ACCA's survey reveals that people are indifferent so far about the interventions made by different governments in this regard. You particularly mentioned the initiatives taken by the State Bank of Pakistan as being very forthcoming, and that allowing some room for maneuvering within your sphere of work. Um, you mentioned that you're continuously going on expanding your loan portfolio, but what about payback capacity of borrowers? Would that not concern you at the moment? If there is a liquidity crunch, if there is crisis, people or fewer people may be able to pay back their loans. So how have you taken care of that?
Yes. So interestingly, microfinance is not in consumption business. We give productive loans. So, for instance, if I have nearly 500,000 clients, all of them, almost all of them, are in the agri sector. They have to do with the Rabi and Kharif crop. I know their cash flows. I know their businesses, and we have a very intimate relationship with our clients. And we are quite sure that this is a real problem, as we can all see. And it's not that the crops are going to go away forever. Their cash flows are delayed but are not gone per se. So this is a phase that we're going through. And I would want to mention what the central bank has done, interestingly, is that they've allowed us to restructure some loans. For instance, if somebody was due, or people who were due for repayment this month or maybe for the next 6 months, some of them who are unable to pay can be restructured for a year, so their ECIB and all is not bad. They're not blacklisted, and they get more time to pay us back. Now, having said that, even in the pandemic and the lockdown, we are still collecting 65% of our dues. So, and these people are in a perpetual cycle with us. So it's bad for the customer also, for whatever reason, not to pay us, because they get a bigger, better, larger loan and the whole cycle continues. So since we are in the business of giving productive loans and the problems are genuine, it's a timing difference that we're facing, we are quite confident that we will get the repayments. Having said that, one last thing I want to add here: we've been very careful and prudent. So we've been increasing our gold back portfolio quite massively. So as we speak, 30% of the bank's loan portfolio is backed by physical gold. And we plan to take the percentage much higher. It's a subcontinent thing. Even in the smaller households, we are sitting on a lot of gold. That's a dead asset. We've monetized it. It's a win-win. We charge much lower, and we are also insured. So it's a win-win for the customer and us. So we are encouraging nowadays to give more loans backed by gold, which is going to give us the resilience we need in times of need. If next year, if things start going south, so bulk of our portfolio will be secured also.
Excellent, excellent. Okay, Abubakr, coming to you now, and about the challenges that your sector is facing. I was reading some key takeaways from a webinar conducted by IMF, and there was a very interesting comment made there about the telecom sector and the ISPs. And the comment was that the telecom and ISPs will be singing hallelujah to their banks. That sounds like a very positive opportunity. Telecom sector becoming more wealthy, more profitable. What is your side of the story? How are you looking at these opportunities / challenges and preparing yourself?
No, Arun, I think thanks for the question. I think first off, the dynamics of our country are a little different as compared to some of the more developed countries when we look at the telecom sector. So we still have some of the lowest ARPUs in the world. So that is average revenue per user. And I think the biggest challenge that will come from COVID is the fact that the economy will shrink this year. GDP growth is expected to be negative for the first time ever. And that means, Harun, that there will be lesser disposable income in people's pockets to spend. So with a 1 to 1.5% shrinkage, and it's anyone's guess where we land this year, and a very modest GDP growth forecast for next year, it means that people will be spending less overall. Now, having said that, also when we look at the split, we have about 80 million odd smartphones in Pakistan at the moment. That implies that there are about 100 million SIMs that are on feature phone, and those territories, individual segments, are more likely to be affected more strongly by the impacts of COVID. So I think these dynamics make it a challenging environment for us and also for a lot of other sectors. However, business is all about adapting. And I think what we find and what we see, Harun, is that we have a number of opportunities. The first and foremost, and I'm not sure whether you're going to cover that later on, but I think very quickly, I'll skim through them now, is the fact that it's imperative for us to keep our connectivity layer up and running. And I think that's what we're focused on doing, and giving people the ability to recharge through digital channels. So if you cannot go to an outlet to recharge, now you can actually smart share. You can recharge through e-commerce platforms. You can recharge through mobile wallets. I think that's an important proposition. And then we see a good uptake, I have to say, in our digital services portfolio. So the services portfolio that I manage, people are consuming more content. People are consuming more mobile games. And then they're also interested in a lot of advisory services. So we have a whole portfolio of health advisory, insurance services, And as Kabir was pointing out, I have a digital IBR platform that focuses on agriculture with 10 million monthly active customers on that platform, 2 million daily active. And that platform is providing services to the agri sector and farmers, ranging from through partners, of course, through crop insurance to income support to weather advisory to pesticide related information. And I think those non telco use cases will become increasingly important in these COVID times. Digital products and services such as content will become increasingly important. And then we will have to adapt on the connectivity layer, making sure that connectivity is available. But I think that the challenging situation overall manifests itself through an economic downturn, Harun. And I think that is going to be something that we and many organizations will have to navigate.
No, rightly so. And when you're talking about the different services coming into the digital layer as well, let me mention one particular sector with a very inelastic demand, and that's health services. We have seen doctors now offering consultation to patients live, and I mean, I don't see that going away very soon. I'm not talking about how effective or ineffective this way of offering services would be, but just as an example, people are innovating, people are relying on digital more and more in order to continue, offering the services that cannot be offered under the current circumstances. Um, Kabir, a question from you about, about. I mean, you mentioned that your clientele is mostly rural or agri-based. Um, this tendency of using digital services more and more, how has that affected your clientele? Do you think that people are now more geared towards digital, or can your services be completely transformed into digital services to your clientele, or is it still going to take a lot of time?
So yeah, thank you, Harun. So I think I'm gonna break it into two: automation and digitization. So the people in rural Pakistan are much savvier than what we perceive them to be sitting in the urban centers. That has been my experience particularly. And because of the mobile phone usage, everybody's using a lot of content, YouTube, social media sites, and all of that. Then the mobile wallets that are out there. So many people are now quite comfortable with making remittances or paying bills to mobile wallets. So that has worked to our advantage. Now, what we are doing internally, I would want to share here, taking advantage of this talk, that we are actually in the process of automating our loan acquisition process. And by that, what I mean is that we have given around 1,000 tabs to 1,000 of our people who are outside in the field collecting, acquiring loans. That they take a digital tab out, they do everything digitally. The data comes to the head office for the credit department for credit approvals. They do the approvals. The loan is given into a mobile wallet, and then we are giving a debit card, and we've installed ATMs in all our branches, through which the people can take the money out or save the money for that matter. Now, previously, in contrast, everything was manual. A person would go out, would do a manual file, the file would be couriered, we would send it back, and then there would be a primitive process of opening a conventional bank account and putting the loan there, and the person would come and take the entire cash out. That's how the industry has been working so far. Now, what this is doing is that we're changing the customer experience completely. We are bringing the turnaround time down from 12 days to say about 2 days. And the whole thing, eventually, it should be within hours. The jewel in the crown would be the scoring model that will give the credit approval. So as we speak, we are now in the process of piloting credit approval via a bot and which will be refined through machine learning. Once we achieve that, then boom, what will happen in the end is a person goes out, acquires a loan via digital channels, sends the data, the bot approves or rejects it, the money is thrown into the wallet, voila, done. So all these things which seem very impossible in the recent past are becoming a reality. In fact, as we speak, we have rolled it out in all our branches right now, and we have done thousands of loans via this digital channel. But obviously, the digital approval that will be something that will take a year or maybe more, because we want to refine the algorithm. I'm sure you understand that. So this is our journey, and we're very confident that so far, all what we try to do manually has been going well so far. We are very confident, given the result that we're getting from the customer and the feedback that we're getting, we're going to get there also. So massive digitization coming our way.
Excellent. That's very forthcoming, I must say. And Abubakr, from your perspective, is that reassurance? As in, more people getting tuned to digital services, more people, now are now relying on digital wallets and all. So, is that reassuring for your business?
Yeah, we're in this space through our affiliate company, Telenor Microfinance Bank. And now over the last few years, we agreed a deal with having Alibaba through Ant Financials, a very strong shareholder in the bank with us. And I think we are seeing that digital wallets usage is spiking through in these times. Not necessarily a lot of new acquisitions when it comes to digital wallets, but the people who had a wallet, mobile phone पे ऐप थी, डाउनलोड की भी थी, इस्तेमाल किसी ने नहीं की कभी भी, वो लोग आज इसको इस्तेमाल कर रहे हैं. They are paying bills more and more through it. They are doing transfers. They're paying university school fee bills, and they're ordering things home. So I think that digital acceleration is happening through necessity. And over a period of time, we will see that this behavior will become more and more embedded as this issue prolongs. Because there was a fear, Harun, at the same time that as people are going digital, if the lockdown goes away completely very quickly and things get back to not exactly how they were, but something similar to going out and meeting, will people still be using these digital channels? And we see that as more and more time passes, the likelihood of that behavior being more of an embedded behavior is greater. अभी भी इसमें हारून अपॉर्चुनिटीज बहुत है पाकिस्तान में. अगर मैं टोटल नंबर ऑफ मोबाइल वॉलेट्स टोटल भी कर दूं पाकिस्तान में, तो बहुत थोड़ा है. 20 से 25% पाकिस्तानियों के पास आज एक फॉर्मल बैंक अकाउंट है. And I think the players such as Kabir's organization and my partner organizations are doing our best. We have something called a 1 minute account opening. So you can actually USSD string का एक number dial करें, वो चेक करता है उसमें कि जी आपका नादरा की वेरिफिकेशन हुई भी है, एंड लेवल 1 और जो बेसिक लेवल अकाउंट है वो 1 मिनट में आपका अकाउंट खुल जाएगा in 1 minute. That saves rural Pakistanis and urban Pakistanis the hassle of having to visit physical branches. However, you still need a physical outlet to go and top up that bank account. वो बैंक अकाउंट तो खुल गया लेकिन खाली है, उसमें तो कुछ भी नहीं है. You still need that physical presence, and I think that's something Kabeer has been working on, and we see a lot of large e-commerce players also saying कि यार एक physical presence की एक उसकी अपनी एक need है. So yes, positive signs on digitization. However, a very long way to go. And I will say this as the last point here, Harun, that while technological evolution happens, regulators will need to keep pace, allowing for this kind of new sector to flourish even more. And I think this is where cross industry regulations will need to be clearer. We see some positive signs with SPP. We're hoping that smartphones in Pakistan become cheaper, Harun. ये सारी चीजें हम वॉलेट्स की बात करें, अगर पाकिस्तान में स्मार्टफोन्स पे टैक्सेस आसमानों को लगेंगे तो फिर किसी के पास स्मार्टफोन होना नहीं है, और स्मार्टफोन नहीं होगा तो फिर ये बेनिफिट्स हम अवेल नहीं कर सकते. वी कैन नॉट economically grow as a nation similar to some of the other nations. Look at Myanmar. They opened up way after us, but their smartphone penetration, Harun, is close to 70 to 80% compared to about 40 to 50%, 45% for us. So there are certain underlying blocks that we will need to uplift to help the nation actually grow in these times.
Yeah, and as we get closer to our next financial year's budget, I can now pick up from your conversation, Abubakr, that you're probably going, or your sector is probably going to lobby for removal of taxes that have been applied on the telephone sets on smartphones. Is that the case?
That would be an ideal world, yes, Arun. But we I think responsible organizations know what a win-win is, right? The government and any responsible government collects tax revenues for the betterment of society, and I think that's important. I think the ask more is, Harun, for those to be on fair terms, equitable terms that allow for economic prosperity and the economy to thrive. There are tons of empirical studies now that show that the countries in which smartphone prices are low, the countries in which regulations for communication sectors are more business friendly, that has a direct bearing on the GDP of that nation. Again, technology, I always say this, Haroon, breaks down privilege. टेक्नोलॉजी एक गरीब को भी वही हक देता है जो एक अमीर के पास होता है, क्योंकि आपके पास जब ये है और आप बिजनेस इसके थ्रू कर सकते हैं, आप अपने कस्टमर्स को इसके थ्रू रीच कर सकते हैं. बहुत सी खातन जो अभी घरों से बाहर नहीं निकल सकती, हारून, you know, there are many social taboos in Pakistan still, let's not deny that. When they can conduct business through this, economies thrive, people thrive. And I think that realization that over a midterm, rationalization in such practices is better for the economic fabric of the country. I think that's important, and that's what we will advocate for this budget.
Okay, excellent. Now let's have a look at the questions that the live participants are floating as well simultaneously. There is a question for Kabeer, and the question is from Talal Athar. Talal is asking what banks are doing to completely eradicate physical bill payments user journey. Why we still see such large queues outside banks? And do you see this as laziness of banks to rest on their laurels, or not innovating enough? Interesting question. Kabir, sorry, I think you are on mute.
Sorry. So I tend to agree that we still see long lines, but to say it very frankly, banks hate it. They don't want lines around the branches. They want to get rid of the lines. They want less people coming into the branch because of various reasons. So I think if you look at the recent trends after the launch of branchless banking, it's been 12 years nearly now. A huge volume has moved to the wallets for bill payments. In fact, that is one of the largest propositions that all telecom players and microfinance banks that are in this business, this is one of the, after remittances, utility bill payment is the largest revenue earner. So a lot has happened. For the commercial banks also, there have been solutions, there have been portals, people are paying bills through the net, through these wallets, as I mentioned, but it's going to take some time for this to go away completely, the way I see it. But if you compare it, there has been progress and we are pushing it, all banks, in fact. And as I said earlier, when I started answering the question, that the banks do not want the lines at all. So, the notion that they're lazy and they're okay with it is not true. They would want to move away from this as soon as possible. And I think we've made a lot of progress.
And Kabir, I would second that. From my own experience alone, I had to, unfortunately, didn't have any other option. That I had to go to a bank branch. It was a commercial bank, and really, I found that the staff were not very welcoming. I mean, from the scans early on, when you enter the gates, and the security guard gives you a hand sanitizer, and then you made to stand at a distance. You ask for notes to be changed because they didn't look neat enough, etc. And the reaction you get from from the tellers and all, it clearly indicated that the bank staff were not comfortable dealing with public, and that means the way we bank right now is going to be very different going into the future. And you're right, Abu Bakr and yourself both said that reliance on wallets and on digital wallets and on online banking or apps in your phones, the reliance on them is going to be increasingly, I think, double folded. Um, Abu Bakr, a question from the same individual, Talal Athar, from you, and his question is, what are your views generally on how layoff communication is done to employees in Pakistan? And he's referred to the situation how Airbnb communicated with its employees. Uh, And his question is, why don't we see such emphatic or empathetic behavior towards employees in Pakistan?
Yeah, no, I think it's a really great question. Thanks, Dalal. देखिए एक organization का ना it really depends Harun on what the fabric of the organization is, what the tone at the top is, what an organization's culture is. You will have certain organizations that say goodbyes with the same respect and with the same empathy as they welcome people into their organization. But that is not then only in recruitment or dismissal situations, because then that empathy is shown through the culture of the organization, in other decision making, in empowerment, in giving people new opportunities as well. And those are generally organizations, Harun, jahan pe there is more of an empowerment for the employee base. जहाँ पे बैरियर्स कम होते हैं, where you can meet people easily, अपॉइंटमेंट्स नहीं लेनी पड़ती CXOs से मिलने के लिए. The organizations that have weak fabrics or weak cultures overall, then they also have weak cultures when it comes to employee matters. And I think it's a shame. I will say it's a shame because employees, they don't necessarily always want that everything is sugar coated towards them, right? An employee base wants that the communication with them be transparent, be authentic, be honest, and have a sense of personal connection with a vision. And if you have those 4 or 5 attributes, you can even communicate relatively bad news, and people will take it with respect. People will understand it. And I think people need to realize here in these times that having critical competencies will be even more important. And I'll just say one more thing, Arun. दो किस्म की ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस अभी नजर आएंगी हमें. एक ऑर्गेनाइजेशन ऐसी होगी जो ये कहेगी कि यार देखिए लोगों के पास तो ऑप्शंस ही नहीं रही, एम्प्लॉइज डेस्परेट हो गए कोविड टाइम्स में, तो आओ एक्सप्लॉइट करते हैं. दैट मीन्स कि डिफिकल्ट डिसीजंस को भी सही तरीके से हैंडल नहीं करते, बस अथॉरिटेरियन कर लेते हैं. And then there will be organizations that are more welcoming of the situation and more adept in communicating with the employees. And I think that will also be a differentiator in how companies perform, Harun, going forward.
I fully agree with you, Abu Bakr. I think in a response in an organization which is blessed with responsible employees, I think this realization that they still have to continue to add value to the business that their organization is in, that that takes a lot of importance within what's going on in the minds of different employees. And in another similar conversation a couple of weeks ago, I mentioned this retail departmental store that caught fire, and this was about 10 years back. And there was no concept of home delivery, etc., and online orders. And uh, so this organization, they decided not to fire a single employee. And to pay back, what the employees did were that they all got together and they decided that they are going to move this business, the business that their organization was in, totally on telephone and on home deliveries. And every individual in that organization started receiving orders through telephones and started doing home deliveries. As a result, we see that departmental stores spread all across, um, let me say, at least about 3 provinces in Pakistan, now giving out franchises. So I think that is an excellent example of where an organization takes care of its employees, and the employees then take care of the organization as well. And I think it's a leap of faith for organizations. Yes, the immediate reaction could be cost cutting and having fewer employees to cut down on the payroll bill, etc. But the other side could be getting employees to be more productive, to contribute more towards adding value. Um, uh, and going on to another question now from another participant, that's again a thought provoking question. And this question is from Asif Javed. And Asif is asking that will telecom sector, whereas I'll pose the question to both telecom and microfinance, will they partner or invest in any startup based on digital services, especially e-commerce or related ideas? And Asif says this is the need of an hour. So what are your viewpoints? Can we go one by one? So Abubakar, your stance first, and then Kabir.
Sure. Great question, Asif. Chage those. I think it's a very relevant question. We believe that partnerships is going to be critical for us. So we have Telenor has an accelerator program called Velocity. Our startups over the last 4 or 5 years have raised a couple $1 million. We support startups in the areas of mobile gaming. We've taken startups from Pakistan to Google Regional HQ Singapore and invested in the development and mentorship of gaming startups. We've done similar work in agriculture, where we've integrated, industry leading solutions into our agri platform and given startups an opportunity. Many of those have won awards. We are recently now also engaging with startups when it comes to digital health and digital education services. Schools are closed, but we cannot allow children to not have an education, and we cannot allow adults to not continue to upskill. And I think that's very important for employee base कि अपने boss से कम complain करें, अपने आप को upskill, because you can never outsource your development to someone else. I truly believe that. So I think we work very closely with startups now in digital health services, digital education services. It's a cornerstone of our strategy. Some of the best ideas come from the youth. And I think that's something we're going to continue to do. But if you're interested, look out for the Telenor Velocity Facebook page and also our website.
Thank you very much. I think excellent question, spot on. Kabeer, what is your take?
Yes, very pertinent question. And if you've been following my Facebook feed, a few months back, we have become the first microfinance bank to actually come up with an innovation center. And the thought behind this innovation center is that जिस तरह उर्दू में कहते हैं जिसका काम उससे सांझे, हम बैंक हैं. Our objective and the vision is huge. We want to socio-economically uplift the society, and bank is an important tool, important part of the puzzle. But at the end of the day, our expertise, our banking expertise. So we cannot work without partners in order to get to the core vision that we want to get to. So over the last 3 years, we've been collaborating with many accelerator programs. We've been funding some startups also. Now, after having this innovation center in-house, we will encourage people to come, have conversations with us, sit with us, look for solutions. And the best part with us is that we have our balance sheet and a clientele which is live. So the biggest problem that these startups have that they cannot pilot their products. So we are willing to open our APIs and run these pilots and see what works for them and for us. And together as a win-win, whoever comes up with a good solution in terms of changing lives for the better, and the bank can play its role, because for starters, I've got like 400,000 plus actual real customers who have taken loans from me, real data. And we can open that up with credit history as well, and other stuff, health related, education related stuff that we can do with them. So we're in the process of doing a lot of experimenting with a lot of people. And I would say the same to my friend who's asked the question, that more than welcome to talk to us.
Excellent. That's very forthcoming, and I think they're very supportive of the startup ecosystem in Pakistan, which again is a major hope and an opportunity that we must thrive on. Kabeer, a question from you, and I think in a little bit we'll revert back to the questions posed by the audience also, and there are lots of them. But National Bank of Pakistan arranged a virtual roundtable meeting to discuss the issues and challenges faced by the non-banking microfinance sector organizations and their customers as a consequence of the economic slowdown due to COVID. What is the strategy adopted by the microfinance industry to facilitate borrowers who are overburdened and under-resourced in this situation of crisis? Are you going to also reschedule loans or give them more time to pay, or make adjustments to your loan portfolio, write-offs, etc.?
Yeah. So very pertinent question. So there are two types of microfinance institutions in Pakistan. The deposit-taking institutions are state bank-regulated microfinance banks like UBank and Telenor Bank, one with Abubakr. and others are MFIs, who are one Section 142 companies regulated by the SCCP. They cannot take deposits. So for funding purposes, they primarily rely on borrowings and grants. And the clientele that they have is slightly lower in the pyramid, but there is a lot of overlap between our clients and their clients also. So as I said earlier, when we started talking, that there is an economic downturn, no doubt about it, there is a liquidity crunch. So the MFIs, as we call them the banks MFBs, and the non-deposit taking institutions MFIs, operating in the same market. So the total portfolio that the market has right now is about 300 billion rupees. And 45% of that is with the MFIs, not the MFBs. So that's a sizable chunk. We're talking about good, nearly 130, 140 billion rupees of loans that they've given out in the market. So when we talk about liquidity crunch, we are still able to raise deposits, through different mediums. These guys do not have the deposit taking ability. Like the central bank, the SCCP has also allowed them to restructure loans, so the profitability is not impacted and the customer does not suffer. Having said that, they're in a tougher situation as far as the liquidity crunch is concerned, because to explain to the viewers or audience, all institutions fund their fresh disbursements primarily through their repayments. 80-85% of the repayments are used to give fresh loans slightly higher amount. Now, if that repayment is not coming through in cash and only 30% of that is coming, so they're short on cash. For that, I think the government is announcing various schemes, the wages scheme that you must be following as well, that the central bank enhanced the limit for also. In terms of first loss guarantees, government of Pakistan has announced a plan of first loss guarantee for SME, commercial banks who are doing SME also, that will loop in the MFIs as well. So yes, the National Bank meeting was quite pertinent and right at the right time. We've had about 6 industry meetings in the last 2 months where we've been present with the MFIs along with the SCCP and the central bank. And there is a huge laundry list of other support measures that are required to make sure that these institutions stay afloat. So, and we are trying to play our role. So I see there is light at the end of the tunnel, but this time, this is a tough time, and we all have to work together, because there will be a domino effect. So I can just very frankly say that us as microfinance banks cannot sit quietly on the side while the MFIs suffer, because we all operate in the same universe. We share the customers also. So we have to stand together in this tough time. And I think we're going to make it together, given the
Inshallah.
relief that's coming.
Okay, inshallah. Thank you very much. Abu Bakr, let's move on to another subject, and that's Pakistan's speed of adapting to technology. And my question to you is that I mean, in an increasingly upward trend reliance on digital payments around the world, the speed with which the technology is being adapted in Pakistan is a little slower. Um, do you agree to this, or is your experience, based on some data from your end, is it the opposite? Do you think there is sufficient adaptation of technology in digital payments, or in fact, you already mentioned in your discussion that there is gap and there is an opportunity. And if there is an opportunity, what do you see happening in the future? What is the volume or size that we are looking at going forward?
I think, Harun, it really depends on how you would assess it. But if we start at the country level, right? Does Pakistan have its fair share of IT and IT-enabled exports compared to some neighboring countries, compared to some of the technology evolutions we've seen even in Sri Lanka, Vietnam? The answer is no. We do not have our fair share of exports from IT and IT-enabled services. This is despite the fact that we have this amazing asset of the youth of Pakistan. 60% of Pakistan is under the age of 30, and about 40% of that is between the age of 15 and 29. And they are coming up with some of the best ideas we see globally. So I think there is a thought to be pondered on more, that where is the gap? We have this amazing youth population with some fantastic technology disruption ideas, but then if you translate it at the country level, the IT and IT enabled export service sector is nowhere near its fair share, and that could be a real revenue source for Pakistan. And I think there are buckets in between. Some of the work that is now going on in terms of startup ecosystem development, that's positive. Some of the ventures that the state has gone into is good. There, I would say we probably need to consolidate the state's efforts in startup ecosystem. If each department, as a public regulation, does its own thing, it kind of diffuses the joint effort. The public-private sector collaboration becomes more important then, and I think the private sector is starting to step up, but needs to do more in terms of enabling that. Then comes the bit around regulations that we spoke about, Harun. And I think the kind of benefits we give to people in terms of tax benefits when they set up a company, how easy it is to set up a company, how easy is it to be registered with software regulators and other houses. I think that's going to continue to be important as we mentor. So I think all in all, we're a little behind. We should have been ahead of where we are today. But then I do see light at the end of the tunnel, as Kabeer is pointing out. The beauty of the Pakistani public is that we always find a way. We always find, some way to actually leapfrog, even when the odds and structures are stacked up against us. And I think the example on digital payments is a good one. There are positive steps. Some of the regulations we've seen recently on having sort of an EMI license and having more digital wallets are positive. Some of state banks' recent moves in this pandemic have been positive. But hopefully, we continue to see these sustainably implemented as we get to some semblance of normality. And I think that's going to be key for us. Potential बहुत है हारून. अब टाइम है कि यार इसको एक्सट्रैक्ट करें. मैं सिंपली ये कहूंगा हारून कि यार हम जब आईएमएफ के पास जाते हैं ना 6 बिलियन के कर्जे के लिए डॉलर के लिए, तो जो एक ऐप है ना उबर या करीम जो बनती है, एक ऐप जो ग्लोबली पर स्केल हो जाती है, उसकी मार्केट वैल्यूएशन उस टोटल लोन पोर्टफोलियो के बराबर है जो कि हम एज अ नेशन जाते हैं. So if someone realizes the potential of investing in the youth to actually enable them to come up with technology solutions, it will take Pakistan to another level. But we just need to have the right roadmap and focus towards it.
True, 100%. And thank you, Abubakr, for bringing this conversation about export of services in. I would like to mention that ACCA is a very strong proponent of the fact that the youth dividend that we have in Pakistan, the number of, for example, the number of accountants that we have in the country, there's a huge potential of being able to export accounting-based services out to the world. I mean, look at China, look at Brazil, look at Poland, look at India, look at Malaysia, and these countries have done a lot to to boost this one sector, which is export of services and export of financial services. Let me very confidently say that ACCA is a very big advocate of this, and we will take this initiative or take this discussion to the next level as we get an opportunity. A final question from my side for both of you, and this question is about CSR. And after that we go over to questions from the audience. So if you can mention some CSR initiatives that your organizations have taken under the current circumstances. Again, another conversation that I was having a week and a half ago with another ACCA member, my findings were that probably the CSR investment from companies is going to go low because of the current financial or economic circumstances, and this will put pressure back on the not-for-profit organizations for about availability of finances. What are your organizations doing when it comes to CSR? So can we go with Kabeer first?
Yeah, Harun, thank you very much. So in here, I would want to mention that our core work is what is CSR for many companies. I want to mention that here. When I said earlier, when we started off, that in this dire time of need, we will not stop giving credit to our people on favorable terms, is one of the biggest things that we have done with a leap of faith also. Yes, you're absolutely right when you asked me, how do you see the risk profile changing of the customer, because there's less cash, the economy is shrinking. But that is a risk we are willing to take because that is very close to our core mission. Having said that, so staying alive, I'm talking about the institution, the business staying alive in this time, not locking down, not closing branches was one thing that we did, to keep the things going for this segment of the society. The other thing is at a group level, when you must have seen the social media posts and all of that. Banks are not very good with that, but the telcos are. So our sister concern, Ufone and PTCL, all together combined, the three companies, we have come up with a package of about 1.9 billion rupees of relief, in which some of that was cash that was given to the Prime Minister's fund, and the rest we are doing. Like, for instance, as far as the bank is concerned, we are going to be restructuring about 100,000 loans. You see, and I'm going to be funding myself to give that credit away for another year. So that's going to cost me easily about 300-400 million rupees in financial terms. We talk about a huge portfolio, maybe 9-10 billion rupees. So that is something that we are doing while being a microfinance bank in the sector, in terms of restructuring and bearing that additional liquidity cost, the money that had to come back, it's not coming back. So that's part of the package that we're doing. Other than that, donation and working with the NGOs, I don't want to mention the details here. I think it'll be a little odd, but we are trying to make our fair share in terms of ration and all of that.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Please keep up that good work. Abubakr, about your organization.
Sure, and I think I just wanted to also echo what Kabeer said, because I think his sector, in terms of being able to still extend microfinance credit, is truly a lifeline these times. So I think it fully agree with his point of view. I think from our side as well, we committed close to 2 billion rupees together with our affiliate Telenor Bank and Telenor Pakistan combined, in the form of PPEs and also cash contribution. I think our contributions we're trying to sort of categorize into a number of areas where they're most relevant for us and for actually the people at these times. First is connectivity. So we have a number of subsidized or free first call programs going right now that customers can avail. We were the first in Pakistan actually to put on a stay home message on top of the phone. So instead of the Telenor logo, it started saying stay home as a way of getting a message across to people that social distancing is going to continue to be important for us. Then we are also investing in a lot in advisories. So a lot of our digital assets that we have, there are free advisories being played related to COVID prevention and diagnostics, and also care. That is on the My Telenor app. It's also on Goonj TV. It's also on Khushal Zamidar IVR service, which like I said, is a platform used by 10 million, mostly rural Pakistanis. In addition, Harun, we have also partnered with some of the leading digital health service providers for either free or subsidized digital health services, insurance services covering treatments. And I think most of all, we are also focusing now on distance education and learning. We've committed to training 1,000+ women entrepreneurs over the next year on digital skills. We are working with the partners and also discussions with virtual university and others for upskilling millions of Pakistanis on various skills on the education front. And I think that's going to be important. Lastly, on B2B, let's not forget, Harun, that while individual consumers and customers are impacted, small business owners will be largely impacted in these times. Cash flows, liquidity will be a challenge, and that's where we wanted to step up and offer real tangible B2B solutions that are relevant in these times. So we have a promotion called Hum Ek Hai offer, which is an offer for enterprises when it comes to connectivity and other solutions that can help them to digitize and automate in these times. So these are some of the examples. It's something that we will continue to do. It's part of our DNA. We're standing next to our Pakistani brethren this time. Yeah, we have to.
Remarkable. Thank you very much. And on behalf of ACCA also, yes, we are working with other regulators, with the State Bank of Pakistan. There's a financial literacy program in place. So ACCA also continues to play its share. And with any of your organizations, if you feel that there is a potential for partnership, Abu Bakr, you mentioned education or educating your customer base, um, or small business owners. I think if there is potential, do let us know, and ACCA will want to play its role as well on being a responsible organization. Um, Based on your comment, Abu Bakr, about communication and communicating with your stakeholder base, there is a very interesting comment made by Wakar Yunus, who's been listening live to us. And he's saying that I believe the main challenge for organizations is adaptability from a customer's perspective. The companies need to design their marketing strategies along the lines of educating the customer base. Most of the times, people are not even aware of these initiatives. And he says that this is the way forward. Um, any comment that you'd like to add to what Wakar has said?
Yeah, I think first off, a fantastic name. I wish I had that name of a legendary Pakistani fast bowler. So Bakar Yunus, good job, man. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. So I'm not going to defend this. I think there are a number of services and solutions out there that can add a lot of value from a number of companies, not just mine. And we need to do an even better job in communicating those to the masses. We do try. So we do try on digital mediums. We try on our Facebook pages, on our social media pages, by using audio services through our IVR platforms. And press releases, of course, but I think there is still room for us to get better. So fully agreed. We take that feedback. We're not here to just preach, but also take that feedback. I think it's a very relevant point that we can do more in getting the word out on these services to the masses. And I think we need to do that for sure. I agree.
Great, thank you. And Kabeer, a question for you from Mohammed Faisal is there any progress related to checks being deposited via scan through apps that many of us are going to banks especially for this purpose, and other services like utility bills being aligned? I know this is very technical thing to do, but still in USA it is being implemented through different banks. So is
Yes.
this too far into the future, Kabir, or is it around the corner?
I would want to thank Faisal for this question. In fact, Faisal will be pleased to hear that all the initiatives that the Pakistani banking sector is taking, we are far ahead. So we want to get rid of checks altogether, let alone scanning them through an app and placing them under the regular clearing. See, the IBFTs of the world are taking over. You're transferring money here and there through your wallets, through the mobile applications, internet banking. Eventual goal is that we should just completely get rid of checks. So for the Pakistani banking sector, we're trying to leapfrog. So there are certain steps, because the scanning of the check through an app is something that has been around in countries like US for some time now. But the initiatives that the Pakistani banking sector has taken, particularly in the branchless banking space, we are actually doing away with many of these steps, and we are far ahead. So if you look at the product menu that we have, or say Easy Pesa has, or Jazz Cash has, we are way ahead in the game in terms of depositing your money in the branch. We are doing branchless banking. You can go to a 400,000 retailer network all across the country, where we have 17,000 bank branches only, and can deposit money there. And the money will be in your account without a checkbook. So that will be my answer to Faisal.
Okay, okay, great. Another very interesting question, and it is Hassan is the person asking this question. Um, and both of you can you know can answer this question as well. Um, it is saying that ever since Pakistan has been placed on the grey list, issues related to financial crimes such as money laundering, terrorist financing, etc., have been critical for the banking sector. I know there is this campaign on know your customer for the banks. Um, Now that we are all of a sudden going digital, right? And those lengthy forms, manual forms that banks used to ask customers to fill up if they had to remit money abroad. Um, how is that going to happen digitally? Is that going to take a backseat now, and with our focus more on digital products, or is it that they will have to go hand in hand?
Yeah. So should I go first on this one, Abu Bakr, if I may? Okay. So the answer is two pronged. One is conventional banking through branch banking. The controls are there, the checks and balances are there. We've been doing it, managing proscribed accounts, as they call them, since a long time. It's nothing new. Where it becomes more challenging is when we are looking at our branchless banking channels, when the transactions are taking place at a remote location, at a Kiryana store. How do you ensure that a potential terrorist, somebody whose name is in the prescribed account list, is not making transaction, even if the amount is small? So frankly, the state bank has fallen on all of us, the banks, like a ton of bricks on this one. And they've been doing a lot of naming and shaming also, in terms of even the slightest of breaches. So we've been investing heavily in technology, so we can preempt, we have preemptive controls in terms of transactions taking place. State Bank has been very forthcoming. They share on a weekly basis, sometimes even twice a week, the list of proscribed accounts of potential names that are in those lists, one of those gray listed customers that we should not be working with, whether they are corporates or individuals. The other initiative that the State Bank has taken is that they are now finally doing away with the over-the-counter transactions at the for the branchless banking players, and that is ending in June 2020. And this is primarily a step to curb, potential, transactions that would cater to terrorism and all. So that is a good step, although that is going to hit us. Abubakr is going to second that, in terms of volumes, in terms of our revenues. That's going to be tough for us. But I think that is a necessity that we have to go towards. So we are taking action, and I think the regulation, I'm not saying it to please State Bank here, but I think we've got one of the best regulations as far as AML and KYC is concerned in the world.
No doubt. Uh, Kabir, sorry, Abubakr.
No, I'll just nothing to add to what Kabir has said on the money laundering and terror financing aspects. Really relevant. I would just though add that another angle, that with the digital products and digital services, चाहे वो payments की हैं, you will also continue to see more information security risks.
Hmm.
And I think organizations that invest in the right information security competencies today across the organization and the tools will come out of this better, because customer trust will become a very, very big differentiator in this digital age. So information security risks, I think, are incidental and linked to what the question was, will become important. And even for students, I will say that this is definitely a career that if you want to pursue, it's going to be in demand for many years to come.
Mm, mm. No, definitely. However, Abu Bakr, while the role being played by the central bank in Pakistan, and Kabir has rightly mentioned that they've been playing a very active role. It's not been a backseat approach. They've been very, very active. When we're talking about information security, or we're talking about regulations around data security and all, the regulator in Pakistan, I can't say that they have been very, very active as well. I mean, if we compare ourselves with other parts of the world, Europe, for example, the GDPR regulation, etc., taking effect, corporates trying to be compliant, etc. We don't see that kind of GDPR or data protection craze in Pakistan as well. What would your comment be? I mean, do you see that catching up increasingly as our reliance on digital increases, or will it still take time?
I think some of the work over the last few years on this, it shows that there is an increased focus, at least, Harun. So we do see updated cybersecurity and data protection legislation. We do see guidelines that we're being discussed these days with our regulator as well and the relevant ministry. So you can clearly see that there is an increasing focus on that side, which is a good step, which is positive. But I think it's a very fine balance that will have to be managed as to how we take these regulations going forward. What are they actually intended to solve? Will they be an overreach in terms of prohibiting legitimate businesses from growing, or will they actually serve to protect the interests of the end customer in the true spirit? So I think the focus is starting to come into the right circles. That's positive. A long way to go. And I say this on the basis of the developments of the last 24 months. On Telenor side, I will say this, that because Telenor operates in multiple countries and is headquartered out of Oslo, we do, as Telenor Pakistan, have to then comply with with standards that are European standards of data privacy and security. So I think our focus and our work has been to be fully compliant, to have right customer communications. But I think this will become a complex issue as we go along, because जैसे जैसे हम मशीन लर्निंग और एआई की तरफ जा रहे हैं, तो मशीन लर्निंग और एआई में डेटा सेट्स कहीं से आ रहे हैं ना यार हारून, तो डेटा सेट्स कहीं से कलेक्ट हुए हैं. अब उसमें कॉन्सेंट मैकेनिज्म्स हैं नहीं हैं, एक्सप्रेस कॉन्सेंट है, इम्प्लिसिट कॉन्सेंट है. द फैक्ट इज दैट वी ऑल लिव डिजिटल लाइव्स टुडे. So I think this is definitely an avenue for where a public and private partnership could be relevant. Telenor Research, which is a global function, has partnered and has provided guidance and best practice recommendations to the EU to help them frame similar legislations there. And we're trying to do the same in Pakistan, to be part of the process, to be part of the thought leadership as it's developed.
Okay, excellent, excellent. Thank you very much. Again, about ACCA as well, a fully compliant, when it comes to data protection, and very, very religious when it comes to looking inwards or whether the entire organization is fully compliant or not. Yes, life is not as simple if you're fully compliant. Life is difficult, but I think as responsible organizations, that is the role that all of us we have to play. I think one last question going to Kabeer, and Kabeer, you may have already answered this, but this is a question from Itza, so you may as well reiterate. On this particular question. Itza is asking, how are MFBs working to enhance their rural outreach where there is minimal digital awareness?
Right. So as you mentioned, thank you, Harun. When we started off the discussion today, that I've been going and cutting lots of ribbons over the last year, and I missed doing that given the COVID situation. Otherwise, you would have seen me out again. So we feel that in a country of 200 and nearly 20 million people, 17,000 bank branches, that too urban centric, is not going to cut it. And as Abubakr also mentioned during the talk, that the people at least need some physical point to at least do the first deposit of cash. So there is a dire need of brick and mortar. So whoever says it's a mutually exclusive situation, we don't believe that. I think we still need a lot of brick and mortar presence out in the rural segment, for sure, while we digitize and automate the processes within those units. So we are 201, and interestingly, we were 36 4 years back, branches. We're 201. And if you ask me, in Pakistan, I think Pakistan is in need of microfinance banks or commercial banks with thousands of brick and mortar branches. Yes, we need that right now, because, and particularly when it comes to giving credit to people, and microcredit in the undocumented economy where the bulk of the loans are unsecured also. So the intimacy that I spoke about between the relationship officer and the customer, that is key. So you will always need boots on the ground to make sure that you are giving a good credit and making a difference. So you need to know your customer well. So with that, I think we are old school. We will continue to open branches. We will continue to expand in districts, last mile, border areas, all of that. And that's the only way to go for it. And while we do that, we automate and digitize the processes within those locations to increase efficiency.
I think that's very, very clear focus on your part. Thank you very much, gentlemen. This was one of the best discussions that I've had over Facebook Live shows. Very, very enriching, very knowledgeable conversation. I got to stand corrected in quite a few thoughts that I had in my mind. Thank you very much. Thoroughly enjoyed this conversation. And I'm sure all the participants who are watching this live or will watch this conversation, on our Facebook pages, will also find this very rewarding and very knowledgeable conversation. Thank you, both of you gentlemen, for taking your time out. Kabeer, from working out of your office, Abubakr, myself, working out of our homes, and waving to our children left and right. Thank you very much. And I think in these difficult times, as you can see from the conversation, there are opportunities. And I think organizations are ready to take over or to fully make use of those opportunities while staying safe. Thank you very much, gentlemen, for taking time out, and God bless you all and stay safe. Thanks.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Love. Lovely.
Love.